Welcome to Business Prowess with Raphael and Juanita. Our show will bring you the best insights, ideas, and inspiration from successful entrepreneurs and CEOs in the business world. We'll talk to experts and business leaders. Don't miss out on the opportunity to learn from the best and stay ahead of the game. Sifu Raphael is the founder of 5 unique shows. He's a fitness professional, solutions expert, executive coach, and head instructor at Max Martial Arts and Fitness in New York. Juanita Cap is a public speaker who was in the ministry for 15 years. She has extensive knowledge of various topics such as leadership and communication, and has emceed many executive and academic events. Juanita is the founder of 2 unique shows. Her life motto is never give up.
Brett, thank you so much for joining me on Business Prowess today. How are you today?
I am doing outstanding and excited to be with you again, Raphael.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. Every time you and I talk, it's always it's fun, informative, and today we're going to talk about speaking and the business of speaking. How important is that?
Well, it's critical. And Raphael, I would say that in my mind, there are 3 types of speakers. The first that most people are familiar with is your keynote speaker, the person who's paid a fee to go in and talk to in a corporation or an association.
Right.
The second is what I classify as the platform seller. And that's a person who goes typically to a multi-speaker event, and they're going to deliver content for whatever it is, an hour or whatever. And then they're going to offer continuing education from the platform, whether it's a coaching program, a mastermind, whatever it may be. And then the third type of speaker, which in my opinion, Raphael, every business person should be, at the least, is a business builder speaker. So maybe you're a chiropractor and a financial planner, an attorney, whatever. You should be out speaking to your local groups, your Rotaries, your Kiwanis, whatever, to help make people aware of what it is that you have to offer, so that when they have a need for your type of product or service, well, you're the logical choice because you're the one who's come and shared content with them that was valuable. You've established yourself as the expert in your niche in their local area. You're who they're going to think of when they have that particular need. So even if you don't want to do speaking as a business per se, you should definitely still be a speaker as a marketing tool within your business.
That brings me to think about all the big corporations that they have the face of the business. So sometimes they hire someone to be even the voice of the business, not just the image, but somebody who goes and represents them. So in the past, I've hired people because I couldn't go to events and that they were representing me. How important is that for them to be able to be great speakers?
Well, obviously, if you're sending somebody out there on your behalf, you better be damn sure that they're going to represent you in the way that you want to be represented. So, if you're just networking with the crowd or whatever, and they're trying to get you some leads, that's one thing. If they're going to be speaking from the platform on your behalf, well, they better be polished and they better be true to your message, how you want to share it with the world. I mean, yes, there are organizations out there like the Maxwell, the John Maxwell. Years ago, there was Career Track and all that offered training, and they had people who would go out under their name and deliver presentations. Well, they went through a pretty rigorous process in advance to make sure that they were going to be representing that company properly. So you've got to do your due diligence. And if somebody's speaking on your behalf, keep in mind that it's really you out there in a sense, and anything that they say or do is going to positively or negatively reflect upon you.
I like what you said, do, not just speak, not just the words, but their actions also, because if they go to an event and they get toasted, hello, that represents your company as well, right?
Yeah, and Raphael, like I said, a lot of speakers don't recognize the fact that if they're going to a live event to speak, in the in-person event, that their presentation really begins the moment they walk in the door of that hotel or that venue, because people are going to see them. If they're rude to a desk clerk or whatever, somebody's got to notice, and all those things can impact how well you're going to be able to build rapport with your audience. And if somebody in the crowd has seen you be rude to somebody or less than charitable and nice or whatever you want to call it, then that's going to negatively impact your talk, even though that wasn't part of your talk. So, it starts from the minute you walk in that door to the minute you leave that place and how you follow up. So,
Yeah, I saw a post this morning on LinkedIn, and it talked about a pastor who was coming to a new church, and it was like 10,000 people, and he dressed like a bum, and he went to the church, and he tried asking for things. He even went in the church. He sat in the front. Some usher came over and said, "You have to sit in the back." People didn't. He said hi to people. They looked away from him. They didn't treat him like a human being. And when the elders of the congregation, they were in on it. They were doing an experiment. And when they said, everybody's excited about this new pastor, and when they talked about all his accolades, and then when they called his name, and he stood up from the back row, which he was not allowed to be in the front, and everybody just like quieted down. And when he started walking to the front, everybody's head started going down. And when he got up there, he didn't say, "Hey, how terrible you were." What he did is he read through a passage of how when you treat someone, you're treating everyone. The way you treat one person is the way you treat everyone. So I thought that was a pretty cool assessment. And supposedly there was a lot of tears, a lot of regret, a lot of
sure.
thought put into people's minds, because it's how we see a person, right? So he didn't smell like liquor. He just looked dirty. He didn't. He looked dirty. His clothes were ragged, but that doesn't mean he's less of a person. So when we look at a public speaker, do we have to dress a certain way? Do we have to? Because I've seen a lot of public speakers, and some come in suits, some come in really nice dresses or gowns, and then other ones come in jeans and no shoes and all these different things. What does that tell the audience? Or is the message there?
Yeah, my comment on that, Raphael, is the industry has changed dramatically in the last few years. I mean, it used to be if you're on stage, yes, you're wearing a suit and tie, and if you're a lady, you're wearing a nice dress, maybe a formal pantsuit or whatever. But times have changed, honestly, and now I think people recognize more. It's about you're wanting to build rapport with that audience, so the audience needs to feel more like you're one of them in a sense. So people dress down quite a bit more than they used to. My normal stage gear now is, I still wear a sport coat or whatever, but I'm not wearing a tie anymore. I'll wear it with a nice pair of jeans or whatever. So a sport coat and a button shirt or a polo shirt with jeans, and that's fairly standard fare in the industry these days, at least in the spaces that I hang around in, so to speak. It's a very interesting question that you asked, because I do think a lot of people, if they come to the stage dressed to the Natalie or whatever, like yourself or whatever, then yes, there's a certain amount of credibility or respect that may garner, but it also may put up a roadblock that people say, he's not really one of me, whatever. So you got to decide what's right for you. You got to decide what's right for you. I mean, the bottom line is it's your choice. Now, you don't want to come in looking like the bum in the back row of the church or whatever, certainly. But even then, there's probably a lesson to be learned there that one could apply in the speaking situation. So, interesting question.
Yeah. So for me, it's always been about the content. What is the speaker talking about? The words. So wordsmithing to me is so critical, because not everybody in the audience is going to listen to the words exactly the way you want to deliver, right? So you may mean something and somebody else takes it totally the wrong way. How can we, as speakers, as business owners, as facilitators of any company or in any department, how can we focus more on the message?
Well, the content is certainly critical, and you've always got to approach it, as you know well, Raphael, from the viewpoint of the audience. What's in it for them? What are they going to learn? And what am I going to share with them that will help them move forward? Now, maybe the purpose of your speech is to inspire or motivate. Maybe it's training. I mean, you got to decide, what do I want my audience to get out of me being here with them today?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I certainly have to watch out for, and I know other speakers do too, is trying to deliver too much content. So yeah, content is king, but you can only absorb so much. So you got to figure out maybe, you know, what are the three most critical things you want your audience to walk away with, and focus on them. And yeah, you can't, you know, you don't want to deliver a tome to them, because the mind will shut down after a while. And, you know, the mind can only absorb what the butt can endure, as they say in the world.
Yes.
And so you got to pick and choose what are the most valuable things that you can share with the audience, and focus on those, and strip away some of the stuff that you could teach them or train them on, but they're probably not going to absorb as well as you might want, because you're delivering too much. So choose wisely, as they would say.
Yeah. You know, one of the times I was going to be on a stage, and I had my suit all packed, and it was not anywhere near my home. I had to fly there, and I'm getting on stage, and I'm getting ready, and I'm like, uh-oh, where are my pants? So thank God I had black jeans.
Okay. Well, at least you were wearing some pants.
I was wearing pants, right? But here's the thing. So I said, you know what? This actually looks pretty good with jeans. And it was the first time I went on stage with jeans. And you know what? Nobody cared.
Yep.
Nobody cared because of the content. I had people literally standing, sitting, moving, doing all kinds of things, because it was a moving type of speech where people actually had to participate, raising their hands, moving around. They were part of the whole speech. But so they weren't worried about me, they were worried about them.
That's
so
right.
How do we engage an audience, whether it's a one-on-one or one-on-many?
Storytelling is critical to the whole process, certainly. I mean, you're going to build rapport with that audience by sharing stories with them. And I think it's important, Raphael, to build that rapport as early in your presentation as possible. So, you know, pick out your most poignant story and share with them early in your talk. And then how you begin the whole process is critical. And let me tell you how I have begun my presentations. All right. So as you know, I came out of the back of the room sales table from managing the back of the room sales table at a lot of internet and information marketing conferences. And I was always happy being the back of the room guy for the longest time, because I'm kind of an introverted person naturally. And I was happy being behind the scenes.
I couldn't tell you're an introvert. No way.
Yeah.
You've come a long way.
I know you well, so I'm comfortable with you. So,
There
you
you
know,
go.
but so anyway, eventually I decided, no, Brett, you need to get up in front of the room too and share some of what you have learned along the way. So my opening was, I would ask the audience to stand up. And then I would ask them to turn around and face to the back of the room. And I'd say, now you may be thinking, well, why is Brett having us do this? Maybe he just wants us to meet somebody new behind us or whatever. And I said, you know, no, it's not about that. It's about, I'm a lot more used to staring at the back of your head at an event than the front of your head. So I may just do the whole presentation from the stage this way, because this is a world I know. And I, you know, got a chuckle and a laugh, and then turned out. So the ice was broken, and we went from there. So, I mean, the opening of any talk is critical, and storytelling. I mean, I was in essence telling a story there, and it helped build some rapport right off the get-go.
I love that, because you came authentic. You said, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. I like that. And a lot of people don't do that. They come and they put on a facade, right? And they think that this is who I have to be. This is who the audience expects. But I think coming authentic as yourself really speaks volumes. Especially, it doesn't matter, like I said, how you're dressed. It's what you're delivering, and how open you are to even criticism, right?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, you know, we hear that phrase, be your authentic self, all the time. And it's, what does that really mean? And like you say, some people say, fake it till you make it or whatever, or put on, what you think the audience wants to see. And, that's tough because I totally agree with you. But let me tell you a story. I was at an event a few years ago, and one of the speakers was in the back room, green room or whatever, and she was educating her staff on something she needed done. And she was just berating her staff verbally. I mean, it was not a pretty picture or whatever. And then she gets out on stage and is all nicey and all that. And it's like, man, is this really your true self or not? Because I've seen how you treat people behind the scenes. And yeah, I'm just me, Raphael. And it's like, you think about, well, how should I act? What should I do? It's like, just do. And, it'll go.
I agree. I told you I was at an event recently, and there was a mad rush to the tables. There was tables on the front and there was tables on the back, usually the back of the room, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not at this event. They had tables in the front. They have 4 tables, and they were huge. And there was a mad rush. But what was interesting, and I'm an observer, I'm always looking, because I want to learn from every instance, every speaker, every situation. And one of the things that, because I always sit up front, I don't know, I go to church, I sit in the front. I was in school. If I wasn't sitting in front, I raise my hand, ask the teacher if I can sit up front. I like being in the storm, right? I like being in the middle of it because you get a better view, for me anyway. Sometimes it's also good to look from the back. So I'm there and I'm watching the speakers, and a lot of the speakers are engaging. They're looking at people. They're telling stories. And this one gentleman, great content, great stuff, 0 eye contact. I think maybe he was looking up at God, because he was literally, I was there. I can see where he was looking. He never looked towards the audience. He looked as 10 feet higher than everybody. And I was like, that's interesting. And he was talking, and it seemed like he was trying to engage with the people, but there was no engagement. But it was his content that drove people to the tables. His material that he was selling, he did at a high price before he even finished saying that. People were already rushing to the tables. And I think I told you this in private. He even reduced the price when people were already at the tables. Did he have to reduce the price? No, he already sold it. But then he said, I want to give them extra value. So his message was good. His message was great. I think he was a great speaker, but he just had no connection, I believe.
That's interesting because, maybe they had a countdown timer in the back of the room that he was trying to see or whatever.
No, the whole time.
You think you look at the audience some, and sometimes you have those bright lights shining in your face or whatever, and you can only see maybe the first 2 or 3 rows anyway, because everybody else is kind of blurred out, so to speak. But yeah, you've got to, rotate your eyes around, direct eye contact with different people. And, who knows? Maybe he would have done 20% more if he'd established some eye contact.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you never really know. But, good content plus good delivery plus good value is typically one that's going to set you up for some success in the back of the room or the front of the room in this case.
Right. So, and now it makes me wonder, how is he one-on-one? Does he make eye contact?
I don't know. It always bugs me when I'm having a conversation with somebody and they never look you in the eye.
Agreed. Because then, you can see if the person acknowledges what you're saying, or they want to see if you acknowledge what they're saying, right?
Are they even really focused on you? Or are they thinking about what they need to do next or whatever? I mean, so it's like, if you're going to be engaged, be fully engaged, and you got time to then move on to the next thing at the appropriate time.
Mm-hmm. So earlier you talked about belonging to a Rotary Club or Chamber of Commerce for business, even if you're not a public speaker. How do we engage at an event like that if we have some fear of public speaking?
Well, the first thing I would recommend is, if you have that fear, is, find the nearest Toastmasters organization and just get more and more comfortable talking in front of other people. I mean, I have done a couple Toastmasters events in the past. I've never formally belonged to an organization, but many of the people that I interview for my podcast come out of the Toastmasters world and have spoken volumes about how much it helped them get over that fear and get more comfortable in front of people. Certainly, public speaking is one of those things that the more you do it, the more comfortable you will get, the more polished you'll get, and you'll learn how to better, build that rapport and have your message resonate with the audience that you're going to be speaking to. So I would first check out Toastmasters and get some more practical experience. Now, I mean, you should typically go into any networking event, and there's two scenarios here, Raphael. One is, if you're just going in to meet people and all that, then you're just pure networking. If you're the speaker for the event, then that's another thing altogether. But, if you're networking at any type of event, whether it's a virtual event or an in-person event with a local chamber or Rotary or Kiwanis or whatever, then you've truly got to go in with the mindset of, what can I offer others? What can I give to others? If you go in with a what can they do for me attitude, you're going to see right through it, and you're not going to have success. So you can't go in with, hey, here's what I have and here's what I have to sell, and if you need some. I mean, not going to work. Going to shut people down off entirely. But if you go into, what do you do? Who's your ideal client? What kind of referrals are you looking for, and all that, and then just build that rapport, build that relationship over time. Then it'll come back to you tenfold. But you truly have to go in with a giving attitude. I mean, you know full well, Raphael, that the success in any business adventure, it's all about relationships. The people you know and the people that know you. And you have to nurture those relationships carefully and take the time to follow up and add value to them first, and then it'll come back to you. I mean, I founded a fulfillment company with another guy back in 2003, and the company was built entirely off of relationship marketing. People I met at live events, people that became clients, people that then were great referral partners. And we built that organization to like $6.5 million in revenue over the next few years, all off relationships. We were doing no proactive advertising. So relationships are critical. In my opinion, honestly, it's your number one business asset. It's not your inventory. It's not your gym. It's not your website. It's your relationships. And so you have to treat them carefully. I mean, one of the things that I think people are very weak at is they get into the digital only world, and it's all about email and all that stuff. And so I mean, honestly, you need do some offline touches, get a little note card developed with your name. And then when you're on the show or whatever, write a little thank you note to the person and let them know. You will stand out from the crowd immensely because you took the time to do that little extra thing that very, very few people are doing. So relationships are critical. Now, aside from the Toastmasters thing that I mentioned, if you're going into a Rotary or whatever, networking is one thing. The other is if you're a speaker. And the important thing is to share valuable content. So your goal is to get them in their mind to recognize you as the expert in your niche, whether you're a financial planner, a chiropractor, whatever it may be. And so you want to share some tips that will help them out or whatever. And then if you have a book, maybe they'll let you sell it at the back of the room or whatever, because it's a low ticket item. Or at the worst case scenario, have cards available. But when you go into any situation like that, you should never just start handing out cards. One of the big no-nos for proper networking is, just don't go and start handing out cards. Have them ask you for a card, and then they've given you permission, and then you can, hand them a card or whatever. So whether you're a speaker or just a participant, you have to go in with a clear goal in mind of what you want to accomplish from taking the time to attend that event. And it's true of any speaking engagement. What do you want the audience to get out of your appearance there, whether it's to be motivated, learn something, or whatever. And so you have to be purposeful in anything you're doing. And networking is a time-consuming activity. You've got to pick and choose your battles. You can't do them all. I mean, in the speaking world, there's tons of networking events. Some are free, some are paid. Some will resonate with you, some won't. But if you try to do them all, then you're not doing anything else but networking. So you're not getting those websites up. You're not actually doing the speaking engagements or whatever. You're just spending all your time on networking. So it's valuable, yes, but it cannot be the full focus of your activity.
Oh, without a doubt. You know, I was at an event. Good morning, Mandy. Thank you. Thank you. Live on purpose. Yes, absolutely. I was at an event and it was a networking event.
Mhm.
It was so non-networking. It was critical for those people there to network. So the minute I got there before the event went, I introduced myself to a bunch of people and they kind of like didn't want to bother with me. I'm like, interesting. I thought they were at a networking event. Now, the person that was running the event
Yeah.
did not even suggest that people connect with one another. And I was like, this is a real, and he was talking about the importance of networking, how this is going to help your business and all this and that. And throughout, it was an hour and a half thing that he did. And I was like, wow. I was about to leave. I said, let me see if he actually delivers anything of value. And I was like, oh, because the other events I was going to go to were already in the way. I was like, I'll just hang out. I'll say, maybe I'll connect with one, two,
Yeah.
three people. Nobody. And it was
Yeah.
very, very interesting. I was at an event recently and I like to talk to people. So I like to get to know people. What do they do? How they're doing? How's their day? All these things. And I spoke to a person and he was eating and I sat next to him and nobody was talking to him. So I started talking to him. And we had a great conversation. And I said, hey, we should talk more. So we had a talk. And I said to him, we did a Zoom call actually. And I said, how was the event? Okay. I said, did you make any connections? He goes, yes. I said, oh, that's awesome. Me too. Met a few here, this one, that one. I said, well, who did you connect with? He goes, one person. I'm like, no way. 2,000 people at this event. You only connected with one person?
Oh my gosh.
He said, yes. The only person that took time to speak to me. And I said, and who was that? He goes, you. I'm like, wow. I said, well, I'm really glad I met him because now he's a client. But it became evident that a lot of people, even though they'll call it networking, don't always tell people. At this whole event, it was from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. They gave people 2 minutes to turn around and say hi to somebody. 2 minutes.
Jeez.
So I'm like, how is this? How do you even bother? You shouldn't even bother. If you're going to say you got 2 minutes, go meet as many people as you can.
Yeah.
How do you know? Speed dating gives you at least 10 minutes, doesn't it? I've never done it, but I can only imagine.
You know, I've been to a couple hundred events in my lifetime, and it was always more valuable to me the networking aspect of the event in most cases than the actual speakers on the platform. Now, yeah, there were some great speakers and content learning and all that, but as important or more important was the networking, establishing those relationships. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of speakers do or run networking type organizations, and I think it's critical that you train your members on how to network properly. So it's incumbent on you as the host or whatever to create an environment, create a format, and train people how to network properly so that they can establish those relationships. Mm-hmm. I mean, the thought of going to an event with 2,000 people and having 2 minutes to network is just like dumbfounding to me.
Yeah, it was to me too. But, you know, I made a point to anybody that was near me on my row to go talk to them, to switch seats and, you know, go say hi and whatnot. So I did make some connections. And even later today, I'm having a Zoom call with another gentleman who may become a client or I may become his client. But we connected in a deeper level because he's an inventor and I may be an investor. Or I may be connecting him with people who may want to participate in his endeavors. But without connections, without communication, how can we even have business. I don't get that part.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're the extrovert, I'm the introvert. So when I go into an event of any type, I literally have to change gears. All right, Brett, it's time to step out of that normal zone or whatever and do the things that you need to do this properly. And so, I mean, you talked about authenticity before, and in a certain sense, I guess I'm stepping away from my authentic self to play, to do the proper role or whatever in a networking situation or at a live event. So it's interesting. It's kind of a different slant on things, I guess. But yeah, I mean, you've got to go in with an open mind, and if you go in with the thought of, again, giving and how can I help these people, well, you got to find out about those people, what they're up to, in order to be able to offer any assistance whatsoever. Right. So step out of that comfort zone if you're an introvert like I do, and get up there and make some new friends.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that when we talk about the speaking business, and it's not necessarily as a public speaker, and I want to make sure that everybody understands that it's the words that come out of your mouth that will either elevate your business or keep the business where it is, or even retract, if you will, take away your business. So many people are focused on being right, that they want to serve the customer no matter what, but they forget to serve themselves. They forget to serve the purpose of their business. Let's talk about that, if you don't mind, for a second. How important is it that we don't always have to agree that the customer is right as a business owner, or even as a speaker even?
Well, the customer isn't always right, certainly. I had an experience recently where I took my vehicle into an oil lube, change place or whatever. And between them driving my truck out of the bay around to the front of the building, somehow the gear shift got stuck in drive. And maybe it was happen chance. Maybe they nicked something when they were changing the oil or whatever. But the bottom line is that transmission cable got snapped. So I had, that cost me a few $100s to get fixed. And I went back to the oil lube place and said, hey, here's the situation. Are you going to do anything about this? What are you going to do? And they said, hey, we just touched the oil line. We didn't touch anything else whatsoever. We're not going to do anything for you. Sorry, tough luck or whatever. I said, well, this is going to cost you a lot more than what this would have cost you, because now you just lost a lifetime customer that, would have spent thousands of dollars with you over the years for, a couple $100 thing or whatever. So, yeah, the customer isn't always right, but I think you need to recognize the long-term value of a customer and react accordingly. And sometimes you may have to take one on the chin a little bit that you don't think is the fairest thing,
right? But
you got to look at the realities of the viability of your long-term business. I mean, I'm not always right.
Neither am I.
And I got to tell you another story. So a few years ago, I was supposed to be a radio guest on a show, and it was at a weird time. It was like on a Sunday afternoon. I got home from church. I got busy doing some yard work, whatever, and just totally spaced it. And then I realized about 2 hours later, oh my God, I just forgot all about that. And I felt terrible. I beat myself up for weeks over that. But I reached out to them and, what can I do to make this right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, they weren't interested in talking. So it was a valuable lesson learned about, calendars and alerts and all that stuff, and, keeping track of things. And so, was I wrong? And will I have liked the chance to make it right? Certainly. But it also opens up, if people flake out on being a guest on my show or whatever, I'll give them up to 3 tries at the most. You say, yeah, I realize things happen or whatever. If you still would like to do it, go reschedule or whatever. And then, third strike and you're out. I mean, you wasted enough of my time or whatever. But because I've been in the boat of being on the other side of things and missing an interview, I give people every opportunity to make it right and be there. So,
yeah. I had somebody who was, my show's alive. They were supposed to be on. They said, oh, so sorry. Okay, here's your second chance. They missed the second one. Oh, so sorry. and then they want to come back a third time. I said, absolutely, I will have you, but there is going to be a fee. There's going to be a fee because I don't charge for anybody to be on my show. I didn't charge you to be here.
Yeah.
I am grateful for the time that you're taking and sharing your knowledge with us. But if you're going to blow my time away, because my time is, I can never get it back.
Right.
So I am super grateful for you being here. But for this person, I said, well, no problem. You want to be on the show? Absolutely. Here's the fee. And they're like, oh, what do you mean? You're going to charge me? I'm like, yes, I charge way more for my time, and you wasted it twice. You think I'm going to do a third one? Never going to happen unless you pay for it.
So did they pay the fee?
No, I never heard of them again. But, I gave, one of the things, unlike you, I give people a second chance because, life happens. For example, I had a conversation with a client. For the past week, this is in my martial arts business, they were very irate, and I would be very kind, very generous, talk and whatever, and say nice things, and they were like, So I met with them, and they were very nervous to talk to me, and I'm like, I consider you family. Anything you say to me is fine. I said, don't worry, you're not going to hurt my feelings.
Mm-hmm.
I said, we need to iron out whatever is not comfortable for you. So they talked. And the more they talked, the more they solved their own problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I was listening. So I think one of the things, and then here's the funny thing. At the end of this whole thing, I said, I have a proposition for you. Will you do these things? Absolutely. Anything you need me to do, I will do. I said, great. I said, I'm even going to give you this products for free. Don't even worry about it. I don't want the products. I already have them. I'm like, okay, cool. So they went with the proposition. They're doing what I asked of them.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole thing, I think that when we talk about the business of speaking, where some people forget the most important part. It's the listening,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if I came in thinking they're irate and I started telling and not even yet, because I'm not a yeller, but imagine if I was, right? And I go back and forth, they might not be my client. But meanwhile, now they're on my team.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually going to be helping with some of my projects that I'm doing because I gave them a voice that they can share. And now I gave them an additional platform that they can put their input, because I thought their input was great. And I said, I love what you're doing. I said, I would love for you to join us and do this for us. Absolutely. Anything you need. So I turned that around from a negative thing to a positive because I did what? Listen.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, listening is critical, certainly, if you're going to have any kind of success in business, whether it's as a speaker or anything. I mean, your story made me think about, one of the things that I'd say one of my superpowers, so to speak, is I have a tough skin. I'm willing to take feedback or whatever. And I tell people, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Be brutally honest about what you liked and what you didn't like, because that's the only way I'm going to improve. And some people are so afraid to get that feedback, and because they might hear something negative or whatever. I'm saying, give it to me. I want to hear it. You're not going to hurt my feelings. And now, will I say that I probably wasn't dinged a little bit from time to time? No, I'm not going to say that. But, you truly got to be willing to be receptive to that input and then adjust, as necessary going forward. So, got to have a tough skin in business, certainly.
Oh, yeah. Anytime somebody has a complaint, I want to hear it, because I'm not being defensive. If anything, I want to see it from your point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it makes sense, I'm going to agree with you, and I'm going to go, wow, I really appreciate you pointing this out to me. And then the other thing is, one of the things I always say to my clients, and it doesn't matter what kind of business we're in, whether it's the woodworking business, the coaching business, whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm saying, listen, if I take you on as a client, you're my family because I only work with people I like. So I only work with you if I consider you as family. So you can say anything to me. And I hope that you extend the same freedom to me because I'm going to be honest, especially if you're a coaching client. Oh my gosh, you're going to listen to the truth. And if you don't like it, then we can't work together. Right?
Yeah. Well, they don't have to like it. They just have to be willing to accept it and make the adjustments that you're suggesting.
They don't have to, but they can choose to. Right. When we think about one of the things that you said, and I truly love this as a speaker, is stories. Because stories bring people into the realm that you want them to go into. Without stories, people are going to fall asleep. And so that reminds me of teachers I've had that literally I was like, do anybody have toothpicks in this classroom? Because when I was a kid, because I want to try to stay up because this stuff is important, but it's so boring. But then the teachers who, even no matter how tired I was, I didn't need toothpicks to keep my eyes open because they engaged me, which energized me. And there was no way I was going to fall asleep when they were talking because of the way they delivered.
Yeah, stories are just critical. And, I'm thinking back to my college days and high school days and all that stuff, which is, a ways back now. Let's just be honest.
A few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, a few teachers or professors stick to mind, but I don't know whether it was because they were good storytellers or whatever. Probably so, honestly, because that's why they stick in my mind or whatever. But it's interesting. I wonder if in today's training of teachers, do they teach them how to tell stories to better engage your audience? Did you ever have any formal training on storytelling to get the best out of your martial fitness clients or your coaching clients or whatever?
Not one bit.
Yeah, just comes naturally.
Oh yeah. It's very interesting because when I tell let's talk just martial arts. When I tell them a story, it's all of a sudden they get engaged. They're like, oh, how did this happen? Oh, what? And all of a sudden they know, and they're like, hey, can you tell us a little bit more detail on that story? What happened? And all of a sudden they're engaged. Now they're asking me questions about the story because my training stories are pretty crazy. And for me, it's I want them to get to know me and let them know, hey, you know what? I'm just like you. And it doesn't matter because a belt is just keeping the pants around me up, right? But it's the skills and the knowledge and the action that we take that will elevate you to another level. And so I'm always encouraging anybody, whether they're a private client, a group client, anyone, it's if whatever actions you take, they're going to elevate you. For example, when I go into somebody's home and they invite me in a home and they say, I want you to build this custom high-end, piece of furniture in here. Before I walk into their house, my shoes are off. And they're like, you don't have to take your shoes off. I'm like, my shoes are off. And they're like, okay. And then I'm extremely polite. One of the things, because Chinese culture does teach that whenever you go into somebody's home, if they offer you anything to eat, you always say yes, even if you're full, right? So it's these things that we need to be able to do in order to let somebody know that you respect them, that you respect what they're doing, they're saying, so that we can have that back and forth, right? Because without back and forth, it's a one-way situation, and it's not always going to be a pretty one.
All right, so I have a business question for you, sir.
Yes, sir.
And it's, how the hell do you juggle all the balls you've got up in the air?
Passion, and my why, which I had a conversation this morning on my other show. My why is to impact as many people as possible. Now, everybody says, how do you know how many people? Well, there's people, I want to impact 1 million people. I want to impact 10 million people. I don't know how many people. If I impact one person, man, I am golden. But if I impact many, man, I am just rich. So for me, it's always about how do we show up everywhere and anywhere if you wake me up at 3 a.m, how am I going to be? Am I going to be mad at you that you woke me up? Or am I going to be concerned of how can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter when I'm woken up or when I'm disturbed or this, but somebody thinks, oh, I'm sorry, I'm disturbing you. You're not. How can I be of help? So that's my why. And that's my purpose, to help as many people as I can. That's why I'm here.
All right. Well, I'll give you 2 thumbs up on that. All right.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And, you know, I see that you found your way to realize that you had the potential, because the back of the room was great. But then you said, you know, I've learned so many great lessons. And a lot of them is because you've seen thousands of speakers, and you've seen what they've done right. You've seen what they've done wrong. And including that lady that was being that nice, you understood the importance of your messages. So thank you for that.
You're most welcome.
Yes, sir. What would you say, before we wrap it up, is one thing that you would tell somebody to, no matter what they do with their speaking?
Find a mentor. Find somebody that's been down the path before you to help lead you, because you can learn by the school of hard knocks, but you'll get a lot of bruises and spend a lot more of your own time and money trying to figure it out than using somebody's guide path or whatever that's been down that road before you to help you along the way. So if you're wanting to get into it, find somebody to learn from, and maybe more than one person. But you've got to continually learn and expand on your knowledge, and then keep practicing. Just keep getting better, keep getting better, keep getting better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for those of you who want to get better, I have a great guy. His name is Brett Ridgway. He is an exceptional coach that can get you to the right place. So reach out. If you want to reach out to Brett, what is your website?
Sure. The primary website is brettridgway.com, and that's Brett with 1 T and Ridgway without an E. And I would also invite people who are interested in speaking to check out my podcast, which I am honored to interview Raphael on soon, called Spotlight on Speaking, and that's at spotlightonspeaking.com.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, people, follow my good friend Brett. He is an exceptional coach. And forget the coaching part. He's just a great guy. So, Brett, thank you so much for taking the time. And it was short notice, everybody, just so you know, sometimes an opportunity presents itself, and sometimes you just got to grasp it, right?
Somebody hands you the microphone, take it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, my friend. You have yourself an exceptional day. And everybody, do me a favor, follow, share, and like the show. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care, everybody.